So I'm going to introduce Pandion Music Foundation, and then I'm going to introduce Mallory. Pandion Music Foundation, PMF, is a 501c3 nonprofit that equips emerging music creators around the world with tools to help foster more equitable, attainable, and sustainable careers. We're based in Los Angeles. PMF amplifies diverse voices to grow a more inclusive music industry by providing free weekly online workshops and wellness activities that connect independent musicians and leading professionals. Mallory Zumbach, founder of Maximal Music Sync, brings almost 2 decades of diverse music sync and business affairs experience to the company, including time spent at One Little Indie Records, Warner Chappell, Crispin Porter, Buguski Round Hill Music, and Hitcher Music Pulse Music Group. She has landed many syncs across a variety of ads, films, TV shows, video games, trailers, promos, podcasts, and more. So, welcome, Mallory. We're so happy to have you, and I know that
Hi,
there's
everyone.
so much more about you. Give us a little bit more of a glimpse about you and
Sure. So my background is that I have always been really into music. Like I played piano and was in band and choir and all that kind of stuff when I was young. And I went to the Berklee College of Music and majored in music business and vocal performance there. While I was there, I took this intro to songwriting class, and the teacher talked about Paula Cole and how she, was able to sort of fund her whole career having that theme song to Dawson's Creek. And I thought, sync, that's interesting. I really love movies. I really love, TV and stuff. What if I could combine all that with my love of music? And so that, um, pretty straight out the gate kind of put me down my path of like I knew I wanted to do something in that world. And after I graduated, as referenced in the bio, I moved to New York and took a job at what used to be called One Little Indian Records, now One Little Indie Records, and then ended up moving over to Warner Chappell, where I really started to focus heavily on sync specifically, particularly advertising and video games. That was what the New York department did. LA did all the film and TV. We did all the ads and games. So that was really where I cut my teeth on learning how to pitch and how to quote and what the whole sort of process is, right up to handing it off to the licensing department to draft the long form. And I was there for several years, and then got let go when we were on like our fourth president in the like 5 years that I worked there. It was a wild time, and ended up actually taking a brief detour to the opposite side of the equation. I worked at an ad agency in Colorado called Crispin Porter and Boguski. You might know them for creating the Burger King King. That's I think one of their claims to fame. While I was there, we had some cool clients like Domino's. I did business affairs, so it wasn't just music. It was a lot of other things that involved like vendor agreements and stuff like that, dealing with the talent team. The wildest thing that I did there was I actually had to business affairs a thing where we had Bootsy Collins live tweet for Old Navy during a football game, and I had to be there on the phone with him while he live tweeted to make sure that he didn't say anything that was going to get Old Navy in trouble, basically. Nice guy though. It was cool to be like a part of that campaign, because that was back when they were like pulling in like, Bootsy Collins was helping sell boots. And Mr. T was helping sell t-shirts. Like they did a whole series like that was wild. And although ultimately I missed doing all music all the time, I will say that it was great. That was like a great 14 months of a boot camp and how the other side works. Do you know what I mean? And like that's always kind of in the back of my head how production works, what the budget is like, where music fits into the budget. We can kind of talk about all that at some point. And then
amazing.
oh, sorry, what was that?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah, yeah, we'll definitely talk about that because it's really interesting, and I think it will help inform the way that you think about everything that you do, and like where music fits into things. And then I missed doing music all day every day. I missed being on the publishing side and working with songwriters, especially. That's always kind of been my favorite thing. And so I moved I left there and I moved back to New York and I worked for Roundhill Music when they were in their very nascent days. I was like the first full-time sync person. And we built a department up and I got to sign a lot of artists for the first time. I hadn't really done any A&R before, which was really cool. And that helped me, bring in bands with sync in mind, which was also really nice to not just like have bands kind of thrown at you and be like, figure it out, make it work. It was more like, let's actually sign some stuff that we know that we can run with. So, and that kind of gave me the skill set then. I was there for quite some time. And I worked then briefly at a company called Hitcher that was a sync rep company that ultimately got bought into Pulse Music Publishing. And like that era of my career basically gave me the tools that I needed to start my own thing, Maximal. So I learned so much working at Roundhill and at Hitcher about how to make things work and how to think about building a catalog and all those kinds of things. And so when my son was pretty young, we decided to move from New York to the Portland, Oregon area, which is where I am now. I'm actually in Vancouver, Washington, which is right over the bridge from Portland, Oregon, because my family's out here. And I knew that the only way I could really make that happen was to start my own sort of thing. I mean, this was like a couple of years before the pandemic, so we weren't all working from home yet. So I moved out here and I started Maximal. And I basically do a combination of signing artists direct to my catalog. So I have a roster of artists that I rep and that I pitch for sync. And then I also represent catalogs who bring me on a retainer basis to pitch their music as well. And I've worked with a variety of catalogs over time. And one of the main ones that I've been with for a long time is Pen Music Group, which is an independent publisher in LA. Our relationship is growing and growing with the hope that eventually I think, a colleague of mine there and I will become the Penn Sync department. So that's what's happening right now with me career wise. A through line definitely you might have noticed is a lot of publishing because, like I said, I really like working with songwriters, and I think in sync that can be really exciting because not only do we get briefs where people are looking for known songs or looking for pre-existing songs, but we also get briefs where they might want someone to create a cover or create a new song for a project. So we'll talk about that a little bit too. And I mean, yeah, that kind of brings me up to where I am now.
Amazing.
I definitely have been on the major side, been on the opposite side with the advertising thing, and then also really kind of found my groove in the more independent space, which I think is a much more artist friendly space and allows you to be way more hands on with people.
Great. I was checking out your website. I'll put it in the chat. And it's very informative. I like how you feature your artists and a few featured songs. That's great. Are you a small team or a solo, or how do you handle your?
I'm solo as far as Maximal goes. When I work on Pen, there's another woman who also consults. Her name is Amy Roberts, and she and I worked together back in the Roundhill days. So there are a few catalogs where I'm sort of teamed up with another independent consultant. So I don't feel like I'm solo. Also, we both Maximal and Pen are part of a small group of music supervisors, all companies that have teams of like 1 to 3 people max. That we call ourselves the collective. And like if one of us, we have a Slack, and if one of us gets a brief, we post that brief to the Slack with all the kind of identifying factors removed, you know what I mean, to protect the identity of the supervisor. And if say I post something and somebody else got it, they just say, oh, I got that direct, I'm dealing with it direct. But if they didn't get it, then we can kind of pitch each other's stuff. It's sort of our way around the concept of non-exclusive deals, which we can also talk about at some point in a bit, which have always kind of I personally am not a fan of non-exclusive deals. This is our way to sort of have a few companies helping to rep stuff, but without any of the ways that the non-exclusivity can get really hairy when it comes time to make deals. So so in that way, even though I Maximal am one person, Mallory, I feel like I have a team. Like I have a team of other people that I work with every day, which is really nice because, like I said, I have come from, you know, I having been at a major where we had a very big team where like just the ads and video games was, 6 or 7 people, and then there were as many people doing that in LA for film and TV. I know that it helps to have multiple people in the mix because there's so much of our job is relationship based, and we can't befriend everybody. Like we all try to make all those contacts, but it's really funny being in the collective with all the different companies. You see even more sort of the quirks of certain supervisors and how they'll do like really wacky things sometimes where they kind of like assume that they know what's in your catalog, so they might reach out to you for certain stuff but then reach out to another company for other stuff even though you also have that stuff. That's like the most eye-opening kind of thing of like, oh, you've made assumptions about my catalog. And so I think that this has been and I've been working with the collective group since Maximal was only like a few months old, so almost the entire time that Maximal's been here. So that's our creative solution. And it's always good to have people to bounce ideas off of too.
That's great that to work like that as a team
Mhm.
and to help each other, because essentially I could see how you could go further and like your net wider and
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and we're all over the map with our backgrounds and our catalogs, if that makes sense. So I obviously was based in New York for a really long time, and I'm strongest when it comes to advertising because everywhere that I've worked, I've always done advertising. Some places I've also done film and TV. Some places I've done video games. You know what I mean? Some places I've done promos, but I've always advertising has been like the strongest part, the most sustained part of the media that I pitch to. So I bring a lot of ad contacts to the table, whereas another company is run by two people who started out doing more like indie film supervision. And so they're very well connected in that world. And then they also occasionally bring their own briefs to us. And we kind of get first dibs to pitch before they go wide with a lot of their searches, right? So that's kind of a cool thing too. We have a few people in the group who kind of do both. And so yeah, I mean, I think everybody has their niche, and then also our catalogs are all pretty different, so we complement each other in a lot of ways that can be helpful. Where we might not have like a lot of Spanish language stuff in our catalog, but one of the other catalogs does. So that's really nice for us whenever we get those briefs. You know what I mean? They help fill a void, and then we help fill voids for them in other ways. So I think that it helps make us a little bit stronger up against like the big guys who have everything. I mean, I know from having worked at a big guy, like you have everything. You know what I mean? It's you might not even know what you have because you have so much. So I think this is our way of keeping our company small and being able to provide that indie touch, but then also having access to a little bit of a bigger catalog and having more context between all of us getting. I mean, we get so many briefs. I deal with more briefs now than I have at any other previous job by virtue of the collective posting stuff in the Slack, and than our own individual direct contacts, which is really nice.
wow, how great. And then you brought up the the I guess the reality or the problems with non-exclusive. Are
Mm.
you as a collective all exclusive?
Not everybody in the collective is. Maximal is, Penn is, at least one other company definitely is. And then two of the other companies occasionally take on non-exclusive stuff. But it's funny because half the time they're taking on the same people. So we're like, what? And then we find it out in funny ways when it's like, oh, wait a minute, you're pitching them? I thought I was pitching them only, you know what I mean? So I think this issue is like fresh on my mind because we were just talking about it the other day, because those of us who are more stick to our guns about it and don't want to work with non-exclusive deals have found that more people are asking about it when it comes time to sign. I personally think so. In coming up, I was always told by a lot of supervisors that they are afraid of non-exclusive deals because the scenario that many of them have encountered at some point in time is that multiple companies pitch the same song to them and they all say they haven't won stop, and then when it comes time to license it, nobody wants to stand down and say, oh, okay, well, you take it, you know what I mean? And so then the deal ends up kind of exploding. And the last thing a supervisor wants is for the deal to blow up at the last minute and cause drama and make them look bad. So, for me, whenever artists approach me about that, I always say I don't do that because I don't want to be on the wrong side of that situation. And I think that I am just a sync rep company, so I'm not benefiting from my artists beyond my the fee that I get when I pitch something, right? I don't get residuals or help you collect your PRO stuff or collect mechanicals or anything like a publisher does. So it's really my one income stream, and I can't just like step away and say, okay, that's cool, let that other company take that fee. Like I need that fee. And so I think that's like a dangerous situation in my personal opinion. And I think that right now, there's like a newer generation of music supervisors who maybe aren't as afraid of that situation happening as they should be, and they're a little bit more open to it. And maybe they just haven't had it happen to them yet. They haven't had to deal with that conflict. But in my personal opinion, I think it's a little bit of a scare tactic of like being really worried that um you know, I have to make sure that everybody's pitching it so that it's getting out there for every single opportunity. I think when you're putting your stuff in a non-exclusive catalog that also has exclusive stuff, your non-exclusive stuff becomes less important than the exclusive stuff, because obviously the exclusive stuff that's set, that's trustworthy. So I don't necessarily think that all these companies that say, oh yeah, sign with me, we're going to pitch it a bunch, are actually going to pitch it as much as you think. And I think we have kind of a history in the sync industry of being scared, of acting from a scared place, I think. And I'm not just saying that about artists, I'm saying that about everybody. I'm saying that about when I was only a few years into this job, the crash happened in 2008, and people were like panicking, and all the ad agencies were like, we have no money, we have no money. And it was like, where do we draw the line? Like, how much of a discount do we give on fees? You know what I mean? How freely do we start pitching stuff, and just to make it happen? And I've watched that drive pricing down, you know what I mean? I've watched that sort of devalue music. And I think that it's your sync rep person, their job is to land stuff for you, yes, you know what I mean, but their job is also to educate you and make sure that you're not just like doing things from a place of panic and like saying yes to stuff you shouldn't be saying yes to. And to me, the concept of the non-exclusive deal kind of falls into that. And like where I see it very close up too is with the catalogs in the collective that do have non-exclusive stuff, and how when they've had somebody for a while and then all of a sudden that person wants to be non-exclusive with somebody else too, it's sort of demoralizing. And then they're like, man, well, I don't want to pitch them as much anymore. Do you know what I mean? Because like they're obviously not interested in building our relationship up. And so I think it just gets really hairy. And I think, to me, I would suggest like ways around it. If somebody's like, oh, I don't really feel great, having just like one company pitch my stuff. First, I always tell them, well, you're actually not having one company pitch your stuff, because I work in the collective. So you really have 5 companies pitching your stuff, but also, but in a way where we have it all worked out that like if another company in the collective pitches a Maximal song and they land it, right? They handle the license and they take half of my commission. They don't touch the amount of money that the artists or the writers make. You get the same fee no matter what. That is how we have it set up. And it's very clear. It's very straightforward, so that we never have an issue. You know what I mean? Like that is why we structured it this way, so that we never run into that issue of, well, these 3 companies pitched this to me and now what do I do? It's very much like we are benefiting from each other's connections, but in a way that benefits both of us mutually and benefits the artists and keeps us from ever having to deal with drama. You know what I mean? And by the way, like as the years have passed and we've been doing this, because all of our companies are growing and getting better catalogs and everything like that, like we all kind of need each other less and less. But it's just nice to have that there to kind of know, oh, I guess I'm still not hearing from this person or whatever. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that a lot of us are hearing from all the same people. So, and people who've been doing it for a while, at least, I mean, yes, again, sometimes supervisors won't reach out to one place because they're making an assumption about your catalog. There are times when they're reaching out to a certain group of people over a certain group of people, but I think the crossover is bigger than most companies would have you think. And I think that, to me, if you want to really have success in this world, like the best thing you can do is have a company who's really invested in you and really believes in you and is like ready to go to the mat. And it's more about a person like me being a resource for you too, and talking about the music and like trying to strategize and all those kinds of things. I think that um, to me, it's better to have like a really strong relationship than to have six kind of weak relationships. And like a lot of those companies that do a bunch of non-exclusive deals, they wrap a ton of stuff too. So it's no better than being with a major where you're going to get buried in the catalog because they have 20 bands or 20 artists that sound a lot like you know what I mean? Like we keep it small so that we have a roster that's varied and people stand out, and we have 3 or 4 artists that are the go-to's for that sound, and they get pitched every time we get a search for that sound because they don't have to be thrown by the wayside, because the supervisor says, oh, send me your 5 best songs, and it's like, well, I have 12 bands that sound like this, what do I do? You know what I mean? I think that to me is the biggest appeal of being at an indie and keeping it small. And so when you get these sync rep companies who rep literally everyone because they have all these non-exclusive deals, I mean, I just don't know. Maybe that's the reason you feel like you need non-exclusive deals, because they're not really pitching you as frequently as somebody who is completely invested in your sound. That's my
So,
little soapbox on
yeah,
that.
I love your wide explanation of it all. So when you do come across an artist that you're interested in, is it a 1 to 2 or 3 year commitment? What is it?
um, my deals are typically 1 year, and then it rolls over automatically unless we decide to give each other, I think it's like 60 days notice. So I think 1 year is a fair time to sort of although I will say there was a year a couple of years ago where there was the big strike, and I don't know that that would have been the most fair year to make judgments,
Right.
but like crazy events like COVID and strikes aside, I think 1 year is a pretty fair window of time to figure out if you want to keep working with somebody or not. It takes time. You guys have to get us the music. We have to kind of go through, listen, get familiarized, tag it, and then start pitching it. And then, the first time you pitch something to a supervisor, they're not necessarily going to jump on it. It may take a few times of it popping up in various pitches before they're like, oh, yeah, you know what I mean? This artist does have a lot that's like in this sound that the TV show that we are working on uses. So I think that it's rare. I think only once did I start working a catalog, and like within like 2 weeks I landed a sync. And they knew that was crazy. Do you know? Like we were like, this is wild. This never happens. What luck. But I think for the most part, it takes a little bit of time to really get stuff out there and into the marketplace and like in people's ears. And so I think a year is pretty fair. If you're talking like a deal with Penn, who is a publisher and does more admin deals, the typical timeline on an admin deal is usually 2 to 3 years. Almost all companies do a 2 to 3 year term for an admin deal. Again, because they're collecting other money, they're collecting international money, and that always takes extra time to get in. But compared to a publishing deal where you can be locked into those for decades, right? I think that doing a sync rep deal or an admin deal can be very it's a trial, it's a trial period, and it's like pretty rare for people to be like, hey, the year is up, I want out. You know what I mean? Like I've very rarely had that, and like the 1 or 2 times that I did, I was like, yep, go on, it's fine, we're just not being able to make anything happen. You know what I mean? I hope you find somebody who can. So I think that I think that I feel personally that even from my side of it, a year is a really good amount of time on a sync rep deal to really figure out, is this something that we can make happen or not. Yeah.
Cool. I have a couple of questions from Liman,
Sure.
New York podcast. Is the fee for the songwriter a percentage of the licensing fee? Is there a difference between 100K film and a 1K indie film?
Yes.
I put it in the chat, so I think I.
Well, okay, so let me clarify. I guess the actual sync fee will differ wildly depending on the project for sure. So starting from a higher level, right? Like if you're working on a big studio movie and the use is this very featured kind of use, like a montage or an opening credit or an end credit, that is going to garner you a lot more money than if you're working on like a background use in an indie film with a much smaller budget. And like the on film, supervisors will often give us what the overall budget is so that we have an awareness of like where the music budget fits into that, right? And it's wild because the indie budgets can seem like a large amount of money to your average person, but then you have to think about all the stuff that that has to cover, right? And this is a thing that I really picked up on when I worked in advertising. In a lot of ways in productions, this is specific to advertising, but it obviously goes to film too because there's a lot of unions tied to it, right? So talent, like the actors and the actresses have these set sort of stat rates because they're SAG-AFTRA, and those apply anytime they're on a SAG-AFTRA production, film, TV, ads, you name it. So certain areas are relatively non-negotiable. If you're like a big famous actor, you can negotiate over scale and get way more money, right? But like when they're budgeting for a production, they have kind of a rough idea of how much they need to set aside for that realm. Um, the same thing goes for a lot of other contractors that are involved in any production. They have a rough idea of how much it's going to cost them to hire a director. They have a rough idea of how much it's going to cost them to have the crew and to find a facility to film at and all those kinds of things, because a lot of times those are very sort of like typical rates. Music is one of the rare areas where there is like complete negotiation power, right? We have no sort of stat rate in things. There are some television shows, like I'll use like American Idol as an example. There are some television shows where they have what they call their rate card for the show, and they lay it out to make it fair, and things are kind of MFN, which is not necessarily true of like a regular non-music based TV show. And so you sort of know when you approve it, like, oh, if they use the song this way, it's going to be one thing. And if they use the song that way, it's going to be a different thing. And like everybody's getting paid the same, whether you're like the Beatles or Jason Mraz, right? But like, so that happens a little bit, but overall, things are still pretty negotiable. And so sometimes the music budget gets cribbed from when there's a problem, right? Somewhere else in production. So they're working on, it's an ad and it's going to be an online ad, and they're like needing to do more of a media buy than they thought, and they need to find money. And where can they find money? Maybe we take a little bit out of the music budget because we can go with a lesser known song now, right? Um, so, music the music budgets on projects can vary wildly, and there are some brands, for instance, that you would think should probably have a lot more money, but they don't always do it. And sometimes it's just because they're like, we're making 12 online spots, so we need to really stretch the budget or whatever. Is that necessarily right? I don't know that I agree with that, but there's always a lot of excuses. I feel like when they're talking money with us. Now, you as the writer, where does your fee come out of that? Depending on if you're talking about having a deal with a publisher or with a sync rep, you get a percentage of whatever that fee is. Also, if this is a song where you are the sole writer, you're going to get a different percentage than if you're part of a writing team, right? So like let's say it's a song that you're the writer and the artist, and it's 100% written by you, and it's 100% your sound recording, and I am just sync repping you one stop. My deal is that if I proactively pitch that song, I keep 35% to 40%, I think, depending on our agreement, right? So that's my fee for placing the song, and then you get the rest. And that would be off of the overall all-in fee, covering both 100% of the publishing and 100% of the sound recording. Now, if we're talking about a situation where there's, two writers and you each split the publishing 50-50, and then there's a separate, say, master owner who owns the recording 100%. Now I'm taking my 33%, and you're the only one who signed to me, nobody else is, then I'm taking my, 35% off of your 50% of the publishing. So like it's always just like a percentage of a percentage of a percentage. And you know, with a publishing or an admin deal, it's relatively similar. I'm honestly kind of I take a lower I think this is because I come from publishing. I take a lower fee than a lot of sync rep companies nowadays will take half of it. They take 50%. I feel icky about that. I get why they do it because like again, those sync fees are their only source of income. They're not benefiting from other income streams like a publisher would, but because I come from publishing, I have a hard time justifying taking half of that fee for my sync rep deals. So, I think that because in a publishing deal or an admin deal, it's typically more like I think like 25 to 35% is your share on any sync income. And that would of course, if there was an advance, that would of course be recoupable, so not payable right away. But yeah, I mean it's a little bit all over the place. I hope that somewhat answered the question.
I think you did. Also, there was another question,
Sure.
Michelle. How many songs that you all rep in the collective exclusively have never been placed or cut?
Have never been placed or cut. Well, we don't I mean, aside from a couple of the companies that are full on publishing companies, those of us who do sync rep don't have anything to do with getting stuff cut. So that's like a separate realm. A&R, that's for the A&R guys to deal with. And so I couldn't really speak to that. I mean, but I would say that when you're looking at a full catalog, lots of songs never get placed because I'm not just having people turn in the 5 songs they think are going to be good for sync. I'm having them send me everything they've ever written. So, and that is on the off hope that there may come a day where there's a search that fits a weirder need that's not your typical sync sound. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, lots of songs don't ever get placed, but I think maybe a better way to look at it would be have we managed to get placements for a majority of our artists? I think that yes, that's probably accurate. That we've gotten placements for the majority of our artists. I don't think that I don't know. That's an interesting thing to look at statistic wise to see like what is the percentage of songs that actually get used versus songs that don't ever get used. And I mean, there are going to be some songs that are like deep catalog cuts with like really weird lyrics that just never get pitched because there's never a brief that calls for them. But on the other hand, one of my favorite things that I ever did was pitching an absolute bananas song when I was around Hill. We had a catalog that had older vintage stuff, and they had a song called Mole in the Hole. The lyrics were literally, I am a mole and I live in a hole. It was like written for like a children's show. And it was like, they sang it. The guy told me they sang it into a trash can to get the echo to sound like kind of weird. And it was like wacky, absolutely wacky. And like, we were going through the catalog, listening through stuff. And I was like, what is this? And when I heard it, I thought, that song is so weird, but I'm gonna find a use for it. Do you know what I mean? And it might not be today, it might not even be 2 years from now, but at some point before I leave this job, like I'm gonna find a use for it. And lo and behold, we got a search from Search Party, which they're the ones that do all the Wes Anderson movies, and it was for this other movie they were working on called The Mend. And they were like, we need a song where this guy who's a real jerk that nobody likes in the film, he like walks into this party, and this will tell you the era of when this happened. And he goes over to somebody's iPod that's plugged in, playing the on the speakers, right? And they're listening to like normal party music, and he walks over and he puts on a song that's like so out there that it stops the whole party in their tracks. And they were like, we need something weird, like the weirder the better. And I was like, this is it. This is the mole in the hole moment. And I pitched that and like 5 other songs. And they literally called me. I don't think I've ever had this happen before or since. They called me and they were like, we are laughing our asses off in the office right now. Like, this is so, I turned it on and started blasting it, and everybody is cracking up, and like, this is it. There's like no way that, unless the director hates it, like this is the song, because it just got such a knee-jerk reaction from everybody in the room that they felt the need to call me and tell me that. I could still hear people like giggling when they called. It was completely wild. But that song, when I told the man who'd written it, who I think was at the time like maybe in his 80s, he hadn't written songs in years. He, I think, had gone on to become like a medical doctor. He was like over the moon. Do you know what I mean? He was like, "Oh my god, I can't believe it! Like we wrote that song and it was such a throwaway." It was just the most wild thing. I mean, that was like a full circle, like perfect moment. Do you know what I mean? Where it was just like, got the weirdest song in use, made this sweet, lovely guy so happy because he, you know, he never even would have thought to ask if we were trying to sync that song. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, so I mean, and that is why you know, when artists are like, do you want like just my newest album or do you want everything that I have that's available, I always say send everything, you know, send the newest stuff first, and like that's what I'm going to listen to first because that's a priority, but like send everything because you never know, you know, every once in a while. And those are the most fun days, by the way, when we get the searches for the really weird stuff and then you're like, I know the song because I think we all have it in our ear, people who do what I do, that like you hear something and you're like, that's really weird, but one of these days, like that's gonna come in handy, you know? So yeah, I mean, I would say, um, you know, the percentage of songs that actually get placed is not of anyone's catalog, especially if their catalog is pretty big. It's not like a super high percent, but you know, do we have success getting songs placed by most of our artists? Absolutely, because we're signing people with sync in mind. So we're not really picking people who we don't think have stuff that works for that world. You know what I mean? I hope that kind of helps answer the question with a weird tangent on the side.
Oh, no, that's great. Yeah, I mean, because all of these questions are, there might be more people in the room that have this same question, so it's good. This is great, and you're answering them so right on. I think we have another one. Um, yeah, do we have another? If anyone has any questions, they can always raise their hand.
Please do ask.
Yes. So when you are getting approached by artists, independent artists, and they want you to listen to their music for an possible exclusive deal,
Mhm.
what's the usual, what's the correct channel to do it through? Do you?
Um, you know, I get so many just like blind outreaches that I cannot possibly, I mean, again, I am one person as far as Maximal goes. I cannot possibly like go through all of it. Penn is a little different because there's sort of a bigger team and like we have a few junior people who try to listen through stuff when they can, but I definitely um you know, and I will say with full disclosure, like I am behind on my listening, but when people reach out, it's best if it's not blind outreach. So if you have a manager or an attorney or somebody else that you work with, even a producer friend or somebody who might know me, that would help. Or if they're just known within the industry, that would help. I know that's also a hard ask. Obviously, when we're doing events like this, if you say, oh, I, you know, talked to you at that panel or I was on the Zoom where you were speaking or whatever, that definitely I would give priority to that over just like a random person. I would also say it would be really great to not to not reach out on like holidays or weekends. I feel like people do that sometimes, and I'm like, I get that maybe it's like the only time that you have to like sit down, but schedule, like use that little schedule send in your email and don't send it to me until an actual work day because if it gets if it comes to me on a time when I'm not working, for sure, there's way more chance that it's gonna just like get lost in the emails because there's just so many people reaching out. So that's something I've noticed lately where it's like, oh, you know, I'll see it and think, oh, I'm like, it's Thanksgiving, I'm not gonna open that, and then I forget about it. You know what I mean? So my and I would say like put in the title of the email if you all were to contact me, put in the title of the email that you know you something referencing this workshop, the Pandion workshop, right? That definitely helps me find it faster. Yeah, I see Michelle said she teaches her students not to send. Yeah, that's, I mean, it is really important. I totally agree with that.
Yeah,
You know.
wait till January.
Yeah, oh yeah. Right now it's actually weird. This time of year can be slow on the slow side sometimes with searches, but I think as a I think maybe as an after effect of the strikes and like I don't know if you guys realize this, but like even after the acting strikes and the writing strikes were over, there was another pending strike with the crew, basically in film and TV, and so while there was like months in there where they were thinking that IATSE was going to strike and that would shut down things again, and as a result, I think a lot of the bigger production companies and network they were like holding on making stuff. They were sort of like stalling because they didn't want to get rolling again and then have to cut back again. So luckily IATSE did not have to strike. They got their needs met and were able to vote and move forward. But I think as a result of that, we've seen sort of a delayed the normal busyness that we experience more in like September, October, which is usually an absolute bananas time, like across all media. That's like the busiest time of year. It's been hitting in the last like month.
Yeah.
And so normally, yeah, normally in the holidays, it's like it starts to kind of get sleepy, but that's not the case right now. So yeah, if you were to like reach out to me like tomorrow, there's a good chance you won't hear back from me until January because we're fielding a lot of searches for some reason, and also I think people just get in that real end of year mentality of like, what day is it? What time is it? I don't know anymore. Do you know what I mean? So if I'm being really honest, I agree. I mean, I think be smart about the timing and the way in which you reach out, and definitely anytime you can reference something that's like an event that you attended with that person together, or it's great if you know another artist who really loves their sync person, then reach out at the recommendation of that other artist who already works with them. You know what I mean? And that just I'm so much more likely to listen to that. I mean, I've also had music supervisors who have told people that reached out to them, who you should talk to is Mallory. So like that, and then just please try to give grace that I'm like as a small company, it's really hard. When it gets busy, we talk a lot about triage. Like triage is this very necessary thing in sync. It's like a medical term, right? So it's deciding like which cases are the most urgent. And definitely, I think the sync people, we always have to triage getting the pitches out the door first and foremost because we have to keep those supervisors happy. So if we're not getting back to you as fast as we would like to, it's not that we're like ignoring you. It's that every time we sit down to try to write that response email or to try to listen to the songs that you sent, we get another search that's due in an hour. And boy, I will say in the last few years, the timelines on sync searches that we get are so much tighter and more urgent than they used to be just across the board. So it's a lot of like fire drills, which can be hard, for me. I hate it like in the sense that I wish that I could be very responsive to everybody who reaches out to me. I feel really, really bad about it. So, and then I would say, I mean, if you don't hear back, do feel free to check in within a few weeks. You know what I mean? Don't be like pesky, but do feel free to check in within a few weeks. And once I do reply to you, I will always say, if you don't hear back from me by Thursday, please kindly check in because I probably don't know what day it is anymore because I'm dealing with so many searches. So that's like the most honest, I think, sort of viewpoint that I can give you on it. But yeah, just be
Okay.
smart about timing and referencing that we have some kind of connection, whether it's through somebody else or through an event like this. And that's why these things are great, by the way, because they are a way to connect.
Yeah, so I'm gonna plug this right now. Since speaking of events, you've done I think something with 2Indie. I think you did one of
Mhm.
their monthly um, I think agencies. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and 2Indie is one of our partners. So they throw on a big syncathon for us every year, and so just wanted to call them out and
That's
just
awesome. Yeah.
yeah, if you guys want extra help or coaching, they are 2Indie and they're great. John and Sonnet. So that's
Yeah, 2 Indie is great. Yeah.
yeah. So then if somebody sends you an email in January and says, the heading Pandion Music Foundation workshop, and then,
Mhm.
songs I would like to submit to you for listening, then that might be a little bit more of an in. Is that accurate?
Mhm.
You would remember them. Okay, cool. So
Yeah, in fact, somebody literally just sent something 2 days ago that had 2ND in the title, and I was like, oh, I really need to make sure that I actually listen to that sooner rather than later.
right.
It's not just some like random rando. So we don't want it to be a total barrier. I mean, but there are also a few like kind of bad actor types out there too who like really hound people. And so I think it's just be respectful and reasonable and I've had people that it took me months to get back to, but when we finally connected, then we got it rolling. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's hard. There's a lot of noise out there that you have to break through. And that's just how this industry is. Just as there's a lot of noise that we have to break through when we're pitching to supervisors, there's like noise that you guys have to break through when you're trying to get signed to a sync rep. And I think that's why it's smart to do events like this, because then, there's like more of a connection there, and you're not just like somebody who randomly found my website. You know what I mean?
Right. And I bet you get a lot of that.
I do. And like sometimes you get, and it's really funny because since I have Maximal, right, but I also rep other catalogs, I have other emails for some of those other catalogs. So sometimes I'll get the same worded email, like at 3 different emails. And it's like very clear that it's just their like form reach out. And so then I feel like that can be very off-putting when it's like, oh, like this is your very generic sort of like form plug and play email. And if this person probably reached out to like 50 different companies today, like, that just sort of, I don't know, it's not the same as if it's somebody saying, I saw you spoke on that panel. I am really into the idea of being rep by somebody small who's going to give me more attention and everything. And like, here's my music. What are your thoughts or whatever? That's, I think, a little bit more real and like makes me want to deal with you more. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Yes. I'm in complete agreement because you have already established this kind of connection somewhat. And
hmm
so, yes, I would like to open it up. If anyone wants to ask personally to Mallory, raise your hand because that's always nice to do this in
Sure.
person.
I think Christy had a question. Yeah.
Lucy has a question. Why don't I go ahead?
Um, okay, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Okay, well, thanks for coming. I'm just absorbing every word you're saying. You talk as fast as I do.
I am a fast talker. I apologize for
Great.
that. Yeah.
My question is if I've already had songs that have been onboarded onto other sync agents libraries who were unexclusive, and I love to be optimistic, and I was accepted by your exclusive company. Is it proper protocol to contact those other ones and say, stop pitching those songs? They are exclusive now.
Only if you want me to rep those songs. So here's, I guess, I think I
That's what
hinted
I'm
it.
saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think I hinted at this earlier and then I kind of like got on a tangent. So, there are ways that you can work with more than one company, right? And that's that you can say, this part of my catalog is here and this part of my catalog is here. If the companies involved are willing to do that. If you wanted to put all of your music with Maximal,
That's
then
what
yes,
I'm,
you would need to go to each of them and say,
okay.
and you probably, whatever your agreements are with them, still have some sort of notice period. So which I think very typically is about 30 to 60 days. So you would need to like look in your agreements, give them the appropriate notice. You would need to notify me of what the notice is. And so, it might be that things are going to sort of peel back depending on the different catalogs, right?
Right.
Um,
Okay.
but that is what you would need to do, is basically pull them out so that they're not still pitching them. And look, like, I mean, somebody might forget to delete something out of their disco and have like an accident where they pitch it or whatever. Like that's pretty easy to do. But the key thing is that you've notified them so that if that does happen and they pitch it and I pitch it and we place it, then, oh, well, I already told you that you needed to stop pitching it. So, Maximal's going to handle it because we're in an exclusive deal now.
Okay.
The
Got
other,
it.
to add to that, aside from the fact that if you do want to work with more than one company, you can parse out your catalog in different ways. Like with me, I would say whatever is available is what I want from you, and then going forward, right? So it's stuff that you're writing now, and then maybe you have an album that's in an exclusive deal with somebody else, and that's fine, that can stay there. But you have another album that's not in an exclusive deal, so I can work that album your new stuff and your going forward stuff. Like I do not have to have your entire catalog in order to work you. I just want whatever's available that I can work. That's ideal for me, right? As much as possible. Um, but also, you know, I do mostly one-stop deals because that's pretty common in the sync world, but I also have people that I rep that are not one-stop deals. And that's another way you can work. You know, somebody can be repping your masters and somebody can be repping your publishing side. Then you have two companies pushing your stuff. And that's normal for people to be pitching things that are not overlapping rights, right? So that I'm all for when it makes sense. I see other questions.
Yeah, well, I was gonna say, because most of my songs are one stops, but
Right.
I've had kind of poo-pooed exclusiveness going, oh no, you want the more the merrier. But I can tell by your enthusiasm that you are much more invested in your artists and in your music. And so, and in your catalogs. And I think that, and that's making me rethink a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this is going to be something as a concept that right now it feels like a lot of people are kind of freaking out and they're like, we haven't had like sync has not been at its peak the last couple of years because we've been dealing with all of these weird, we have had multiple industry shutdowns between COVID and you know, the various strikes, right? We've had all these issues. And so I think that people are scared, people are maybe not seeing the activity that they're used to and they're kind of panicking. And then, you know, there are certain people who are having that success with non-exclusive deals. And so they think that's the way. I think a lot of people are going to try that and end up realizing that it doesn't make a difference. And it's better to be with one person who's really into your stuff and pushing your stuff and prioritizing you. That is my personal take. But yeah, thank you for your question. Marcus, I think, had a question.
Yes. I'll go ahead and ask to unmute.
I know the other two I think were in front of me, so
Oh, okay. How
yeah.
about we go
okay.
with, thank you for that, Marcus. How about we
Yeah.
go with Ken first then?
Ken.
Thanks, Mark. That's okay, Marcus. You could ask. Anyway, I think I know the answer, Mallory. Great talk. There's no circumstances at all which you would consider anything non-exclusive, right? Not anything like if I stood on my head or something like that.
No, I would
understand.
really rather get creative about a way that I can represent something partially exclusively than
Yeah.
non-exclusively,
Okay.
if that makes
No
sense.
problem. Okay.
And that, I mean, that could literally be pull out 5 songs and let me pitch those. I mean, I've had that. I've had that with artists who I've worked with at other places in the past that are still stuck in their deals, where they
Okay.
were like, I can give you these 3 things that are not part of that deal and you can pitch them. You know what I mean? And so, and if they're good songs, like I'll take those 3 songs. But yeah, I don't
No,
love.
that's fine. Quick
Yeah.
follow-up, real quick. I don't want to take up too much time.
Sure.
Is there anything in particular you're looking for, like retro stuff, Christmas, country music, anything particular you're looking for?
I definitely could use more retro vintage stuff. So people who have back catalogs that stretch back, that's a very interesting thing for me for sure. We always need more holiday music. It's just that we only need it at a certain time of year.
Right.
So we're a little late on this round. Although a couple of years ago, I got a search for a Christmas movie in January, and I was literally like,
Wow.
"Oh, it never stops." I mean, even the supervisor was like, "I am sorry that I have to send you this email right now, but believe it or not, we're already working on it." So, you know, more and more, that's almost a year-round need.
Thank you.
And then I think in general, for me, it's more about just finding stuff from a wide variety of genres. Foreign language things are cool if anything is in a foreign language. You know, trailerized remixes of things are cool. You know, I at the end of the day, what I'm most looking for is really good music that's interesting and fills a void in my catalog, or you know, is just something that's different and makes me sit up and go, oh, I don't have anything like that, and I could definitely pitch it.
Last thing which just occurred to me, I'm sorry. Do you take any instrumentals at all exclusively? And therefore, if the vocals are in another place and the instrumentals are just with you, would you be open to that at all?
No, I can't do that because
Okay.
because of
Last
the way
question.
that
That was it.
copyright works. So yeah,
I understand.
good
Thank you.
question.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And we have Little Man, Liman. Go ahead. I'm going to ask to unmute. Oh, okay. Go ahead and unmute. I don't know if she hears me. Not allowing to unmute. Let's try
I
one more
don't know.
time. Huh, okay. Maybe put it in the chat what you're looking for, and we'll go to Marcus.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mallory. I have a question. I know you mentioned trailers a couple of times, which is what I've been focusing on lately, trailerized covers and remixes.
Awesome.
Um, so, but with those, most of those I do try to keep not exclusive. So are you doing trailers exclusively also with covers, remixes? Um, or how does
Well,
that
okay,
work on
so
the
this
trailer
is
side?
interesting. If you were to, mm, and if that's kind of your lane, and you don't like to like have everything be exclusive, I would say that there are like a couple of ways we could work together, right? Like there are songs in the pin catalog that are big copyrights, well-known songs. And like if you were to create maybe trailerized covers of those, and then you could send them, like we could pitch them, but you could also let other people pitch them. Unless you wanted us to do it non-exclusive. I mean, obviously I think exclusively I would love to rep the cover exclusively, but that could be a way. If you have stuff, if I was to like give you a song list and say like here are all the notable songs in our catalog, and you were like, oh, I have a cover of that, we would want to be able to have that in our disco to pitch it, because we're pitching it from the pub side, if that
Yep.
makes sense. That's one thought.
I would
you
love
know
that list if you have a list.
yeah. I do keep a running list of things to cover, so you should connect with me. I mean, I think there are also instances where it could be worth it. If we were to give you a list of like what we wanted and you were to do it, then like maybe those songs could be with us exclusively, but everything else is you know what I mean? It's not like
Mhm.
that's like a different part of your catalog, basically, if that makes sense. Although that
Cool.
depends on, again, what
Yeah.
your deal is with the people that rep you non-exclusively. But we do that. We obviously we have a lot of our writers and artists on that roster, and artists who are on the Maximal roster that we're
Mhm.
constantly asking to create covers of those specific songs. But I mean, there is maybe a way to collaborate that doesn't
Okay.
necessarily involve you having a deal, and it would be like you would still have your control of your recording. It's just that we would have it in our system to pitch as a version. Because that's the thing. I don't know if you guys realize this, but like publishers do that. Publishers go out and find every single recording of a song that they rep to pitch it, and it's because any cover helps. This is why I prefer to be on the publishing side than to be a record label, because when you're a publisher, every version of the song is yours to play with. When you're a record label, you're stuck with the ones that you control. And this is why, to me, sync from the publishing side, it's always going to be more fun. There's always more variety, and a lot of times we're the people they tend to reach out to the most, because they know that we have these other versions and stuff on hand, and they can track down who controls that later. So I think there could be an interesting way to collaborate in that space, due to the fact that like we have plenty of songs that we would love to get like trailerized covers of.
Okay, I will email you today. I do have one more question. What style is placed the most from the collective in sync?
Ooh, I mean, right now at the moment, I would
Mhm.
say sort of hip hop meets pop is a big one as far as modern sounds go. I think there's obviously also a lot of that sort of like modern neo soul sound that comes into play pretty cyclically throughout the year. Some trends are like steady across the board all year long, and then some trends it's like, oh well, all the fall fashion brands are working on stuff, so now they want that sort of like chill neo soul sound, because that's like a vibe for fall fashion, that we just
Mhm.
kind of go back to every year. I think that we're also seeing a little bit of a resurgence on the rock front, which is great. For a long time, that genre was kind of pushed off to the side and very only needed for very specific stuff. Lately, I've noticed rock is sort of making a little bit of a comeback, and like riffy guitars and stuff are making a comeback. So, the trends, they come and go, but I think also it's not just about genres, it's about lyrics, and the lyrics to me are almost the more evergreen need. We always need platonic love songs, so
Mhm.
songs that are about friendship or family, or where it's like you could be singing that you love the person, but it's not romantic, it's something you could be telling
Mhm.
your dog, right? Like that is an evergreen need. A really friendship songs, especially. I mean, I was just working on a movie pitch the other day where like it was like a 9-direction search, and 3 of the directions were all friendship songs, just different types of friendship songs. And it was like, oh, there's no way that we have enough for these 3 different directions that all need to be about friendship. Because people just don't do it. They don't write about it. Togetherness, assurance, just songs about like fun, party, celebratory, like that's an evergreen need. Keeping the lyrics sort of open and not too specific always helps. And I think, we see certain reference tracks pop up time and time again. I mean, we were just working on like the 5th round of a Super Bowl spot, and they referenced Black Skinhead by Kanye. Like that's it still gets referenced.
Yeah, I see that.
You know what I mean? And it still gets referenced. They're not like the lyrics, but like the beat of that song, having the right driving energy. And guess what? We're on like the 5th round because that's hard. It's a hard song to replace. So I think that there are certain things that come up again and again. But a lot of it is, and then obviously in the trailer world, it's the 3-act build. I mean, if you've been doing a lot of those remixes, you know how that kind of works. The all trailers are 3 acts, and they need the song to build in 3 acts to line up with the 3 acts of how the storytelling arc of a trailer goes. And that's why remixes work so well in that world, because not a lot of songs are written where it's like, you know what I mean? And like, that's like, they need you to do that in that remix process. So, there are certain things, and they'll always love stuff that's got a little bit of a cinematic thing happening, you know what I mean? That's got a little bit of a string element, or so there's certain things that never really go out of style. But at the end of the day, I almost feel like the real key is more that the lyrics are there. And also that the song has an instrumental that can stand on its own without the vocal on it for editing purposes, regardless of genre. Those are 2 such important things to always be keeping in mind when you're writing.
Thank you. I think that there was a general question from a couple of people, if you could share that list in the Facebook page. Are we doing an Ask Me Anything, NI, or yes? Looks like we
are.
Yeah, okay, cool. So maybe if you feel comfortable, that list for the covers that people are
Sure.
able to do, maybe everybody in our Facebook group page would love to see that. And we're at 12:05. We could either take Liman's question, try it, or we could go ahead and end it. It's up to you.
If you guys are okay, if we can get Levon's question, I'll do that, and then we can.
Okay.
Let's try.
Let's try. I'm asking to unmute now. Think.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. Hey, thank you. Thanks so much. Yeah, there was a couple things you asked. You said retro was always popular. Do those have to be recorded in the era, or could they be written like in the 80s and recorded now because it's better quality?
It depends on the project. So we do get searches where they want authentic released songs from the era. In general, big trend right now is authenticity, which I think is great. But so that means not just like songs from the era, but also like having a variety of artists with different, backgrounds. So that if the show is about people who are LGBTQIA+, let's make sure that we have some artists, music artists who fit that world, right? But it also goes to the vintage thing. More and more, this episode of the show is set in 1970s in Thailand. Do you have any 70s Thai pop? Well, I would love to say that we've gotten that search one time, but we've gotten it several times. So,
Yes.
I need to have 70s Thai pop. But so some projects, yes, they will say it very much needs to be authentic to the era, released in that time. And then other projects, especially where maybe they're having budgetary issues, so they just know they can't afford to find like big, releases of that era, are fine with it being just sounds alike. So I think the issue would be if you recorded it, if you wrote a song and it's meant to sound in an 80s way, when you do the modern recording of it, just make sure that it still has that 80s
sound
to it, right? It just needs to have the sound and feel authentic. you know, and like I would even say if somebody turned in a song to me like that, that it was like, well, this was written and like this is just basically like a re-record of the demo so that it's better sound quality. And so I
Better
can
sound, right.
give you an instrumental and stems and stuff. I mean, I would make a note of that when I pitch it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would say this is a song from the 80s. This is a better recording. If you prefer the authentic demo or whatever, let me know. But like, you know,
yeah, most of
that
those usually, a lot of times those are just not good enough quality.
yeah.
And then
I mean,
you
I
got to
think that would
chase down
be
people you don't remember what their names are for
right.
work for hires and stuff.
Yeah.
That
So
gets
I mean, I think
complicated.
that's fine. That's totally doable. I mean, and as you know, big artists go back and create their own sort of sound-alike re-records of their own work
Yeah,
to be able to control it. So
like Taylor's versions.
yes, Taylor's versions, but Taylor is by far not the first to do that. I mean, I got
Yeah.
a version of Bang the Drum All Day, you know, Todd Rundgren's song, like his version of that was used in those Carnival Cruise ads for a long time. That was his recording of it, not the original, you know what I mean? Because he very much like, I want it to be the one that I own. So
right,
exactly. That deal, that was like a big part of it. So you know, that I think if it sounds authentic and you can even say this was a song from that era, it's just the old recording is, you know, trash, so we redid it.
Yeah.
I think that I would still pitch that maybe for something authentic and just put a disclaimer by it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, with an asterisk.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, with a note.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thanks so much for the answer. And oh, I do have a friend song. Do I have to wait till January to send it, or do you want it now?
You can send your friend song and just be patient if I don't get back to you. And make sure you put a note in the title. Yes, absolutely.
That I saw you today. Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, and happy holidays. And thank you, Pandion, and everybody, Rebecca, and Anahi, everybody. Thank you.
And yes, and thank you to everybody. Thank you, Mallory. This is so fun and so great.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
It's just such a joy to have with us today and have so much to offer. And thank you, Pandion Music Community. We have next week we have Mark Wilder. A lot of you know who he is. He's done our holiday parties before. We're going to do a music bingo with Mark Wilder. And I think some of it might be listening to a little bit of music as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And that is next week, December the 20th, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's like a happy hour kind of thing.
Yeah. It's a little different than our usual time. It's on Friday as well. So be sure to like bring a cocktail, a mocktail, whatever you want. But it is our last workshop of the year. So we're extremely grateful for our Pandion community. So we would love to see all of you there, and tell your friends, even if it's their first time coming to a Pandion workshop. I think it's going to be a fun introduction, a little music bingo, and then they could join us for the workshops we have in 2025. Yeah.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you, Mallory. And thank you, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone.
Take
Bye.
care.
Bye.